Now, joining me now on set, we're very happy you're in the studio, is California Attorney General Rob Bonta. We know there was a plane ride involved in getting you here, and we're delighted to see you here in person.
Grateful to be here.
I alluded to the fact that California is one of the world's great economies.
We are.
And what are you seeing in the effects and the anticipated effects with the tariffs that are already in place and those that have been talked about and threatened by the president? What's at stake in California?
Well, California is the largest state in the nation, 39 million people, fourth largest economy in the world, biggest importer of any other state, second largest exporter of ag, biggest manufacturing state. We have an outsized economy, and there is an outsized impact of the tariffs on our economy because of it.
A lot on the line.
So much. We have iconic industries like agriculture and Hollywood, entertainment, Silicon Valley, and they're all impacted. But not just those big iconic industries. Mom and pop businesses are trying to see how they can keep their doors open, if they can keep their doors open. And so from top to bottom of the business community, we're seeing harmful impacts, and we're also seeing impacts on workers, on families. The cost of goods are going to go up, and people screamed at the last voting booth during the election that they want the cost to go down, not up. Inflation is going to go up. The economy will shrink by $100 billion a year, and we had the two worst days on the stock market back to back in the history of the U.S. stock market. So lots of
a broad range of issues
across many sectors and many communities.
Give us a sense of what are the legal issues in the case that you're bringing. There are a lot of lawsuits flying around from all different kinds of parties. Obviously, the state of California is whom you represent.
Right.
What is the issue that you are contesting in the court?
In short, we're saying that the President of the United States does not have the authority to issue the tariffs that we challenge.
Because it should be Congress?
Yep. Okay. Congress has that authority. Congress, under Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, has the power to tax. Tariffs are taxes. Now, Congress may delegate authority, give authority to the President to impose tariffs if it's clear, but the statute, the law that the president relies on, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, doesn't mention the word tariffs anywhere in the statute. No president in the history of the use of the IEEPA has ever used that statute to impose tariffs. So I think we very compellingly argue that the president does not have authority to impose these very harmful tariffs.
I'm sure you've looked not only at the facts of the case, but the environment in which you're bringing litigation against a president who's known to be litigious himself in personal and public life. Do you think this is an opportunity for some kind of leverage, which is something we often see from the president, or do you expect this to just go through the steps of the legal process and to have an answer at some point?
We don't bring cases to leverage. We bring cases to win on the merits. We think that he unlawfully imposed tariffs, so we're going to court to get a declaration that he unlawfully imposed these tariffs and get an order to stop him, declare the tariffs null and void and unenforceable. And we think we have a really strong case. And I think the American people, from the polling that's recently come out, think these tariffs are terrible and they're harmful and they don't support them. So whether it be legal, the actual judicial courts or the court of public opinion, I think this is a loser for President Trump.
That's part of it, too, right? You're trying to educate the public on the view that you believe that this is a step too far. And in the ways that it's affecting Californians, where do you think the most immediate impact is? Is it on the prices of goods they buy every day? Is it on jobs that are affected and tied to trade? Where do you think the real critical point is that people will feel first?
Yeah, I'll say that the tariffs are broad-ranging and indiscriminate. They're imposed against every single trading partner of the United States of America, over 200 nations, in particular the three biggest trading partners, Mexico, Canada, China, of the United States, and of California. And California has made a case that this impacts the price of the goods that we buy as a government purchaser of the vendors that we work with. Their costs will go up. They'll pass that on to us. It also lowers taxes and makes us pay more with our social service safety net. But I think it's the cost of goods for the everyday Californian. They're going to go up, and it'll be multiple ways that they'll be seeing those prices across the board go up.
You've also brought attention to issues we've talked about a lot in these first 99 days. DOGE cuts, the president's and his administration's attacks on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You've brought that into litigation as well. Tell me, how are you trying to do that? Obviously, California is a predominantly Democratic state, although with some very strong pockets of conservative, historically conservative places. How do you think this is playing out in terms of people's concern about DEI and things like government cuts?
I think very positively. We only bring a lawsuit when the Trump administration has violated the law, when Trump has violated the Constitution. We've done that 15 times now in 14 weeks, more than one a week, because that's how brazenly, blatantly, consistently, and frequently he's violated the law. I think the American people and Californians support the rule of law, support compliance with the Constitution, and do not want a president to break it.
And when you talk about frequently, consistently, do you think then your response as a prominent attorney general is you've got to keep going to court? Is that a sustainable strategy for states like yours?
Yes, if we must go to court, we will. I and our fellow states will sue the Trump administration every time he harms our states and he breaks the law. Period. Full stop. And as soon as he stops breaking the law, we'll stop suing him. If he doesn't like all these court orders that are being issued against him, and we're broadly winning in court, we're getting restraining orders, we're getting preliminary injunctions, then he should stop breaking the law. He hasn't learned that lesson yet. So if he keeps breaking the law, we'll see him in court.
So Democrats have been talking a lot about whether there's a uniform strategy with the party. Obviously, Governor Newsom has been prominent on the national stage trying to get Democrats to have a plan for how to counter the Trump administration. As we sit here on the eve of 100 days, where do you think Democrats need to be on response to President Trump? Obviously, as Attorney General, you've told us about your legal strategy. Is there a messaging component or another aspect of this that you think needs more attention?
Yeah, you know, I think we can always do more. We can always do better. I think reaching our potential and always striving to be better is important. I think Democratic attorney generals have been front and center, being very impactful, very active, taking the Trump administration to court, winning in court. That's been important. I think we're seeing a lot of great town halls, empty chair town halls. We have legislators and senators talking directly to the American people about the issues important to them while Republicans are hiding and not talking to the American people. We see Cory Booker's filibuster, and we see Senator Von Hollen going to El Salvador to bring back a constituent who's been unlawfully treated. That's all great stuff. Everyone has something to do. And meanwhile, we need to focus on highlighting the failures of this failed Trump administration. His polling is in the tank right now, and talk about how we're going to deliver as Democrats for the American people on the core issues that are important to them.
And Democratic attorneys general from California are often prominent on the national stage. We've seen that time and time again, so we're very glad that we had a chance to have a conversation with you today. Thank you so much.
I'm very glad. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.